Let us talk about the sonnet. What is a sonnet? A sonnet is a poetic form which originated in Italy. The term sonnet is derived from the Italian word sonetto. It was originally a short poem recited to the accompaniment of music, and the word sonnet or sonetto in Italian meant a little song, a little sound or strain. By 13th century, it signified a poem of 14 lines that follows a strict rhyme scheme and specific structure. The two characteristic sonnet types are the Italian, also called the Petrarchan sonnet, and the English sonnet, also called the Shakespearean sonnet. From its brilliant use by Petrarch, the Italian sonnet is often known as the Petrarchan, but is sometimes called the classical as being the model which other countries followed later. It is a short poem of 14 lines expressing one single thought or feeling. It is composed of two parts: the octave, a stanza of 8 lines, and the sestet, a stanza of 6. The octave has two rhymes arranged according to the following scheme: A B B A, A B B A, and the sestet has sometimes has three rhymes and sometimes two, different from those employed in the octave and arranged in various ways, such as CDE, CDE, or CDC, DCD, or CDE, DCE. The octave may be divided into two stanzas of 4 lines each, called quatrains, and the sestet into two of 3 lines each, called tercets. At the end of the octave, that is after the 8th line, there's a well marked pause, followed by a turn in the thought, which implies that the thought, though it has not been dropped, is given a new application, or summarized, or possibly disputed in the sestet. But sometimes this break is not found, as in Milton's On His Blindness, where there is no division between the octave and the sestet. But another of Milton's sonnets, When the Assault Was Intended to the City, uh, gives a good illustration of the different characteristics of the Italian sonnet. It has an octave and a sestet, both arranged in the manner described earlier, and a pause at the end of the 8th line, denoted by a full stop, after which a different aspect of the same thought is presented. In the octave of When the Assault Was Intended to the City, Milton appeals to the commander of the royalist forces to spare his defenseless house if it falls into his power, and promises to celebrate his kindness in immortal verse. In the sestet, he reminds him of similar examples of generosity in ancient history. The octave therefore makes a statement, the sestet illustrates it. In other words, there is a turn in the thought after the 8th line. The English sonnet, or now commonly called as the Shakespearean sonnet. Now, this sonnet was introduced into England in the first half of the 16th century by Sir Thomas Watt and Henry Howard, Earl of Surrey, two English politicians who, after their return from a diplomatic mission in Italy, wrote verses in this form for pleasure. In their hands, however, the form underwent a change, and Surrey in particular adopted a rhyme scheme widely different from that of his Italian model. He wrote his sonnets in three quatrains in alternate rhyme, followed by a concluding couplet: A B A B C D C D E F E F and G G. This form was so splendidly used by Shakespeare later that it is now called after him and not after Surrey, its original or real originator. Since it is divided into four parts, it has no pause or turn of thought at the end of the eighth line. It works right up to the final couplet, where the highest peak of the poet's thought is reached. Shakespeare's sonnets, like Shall I compare thee to a summer's day, Let me not to the marriage of true minds, When to the sessions, which is also called Remembrance, and Like as the waves, are some of the famous Shakespearean sonnets. Um, Let us take into example uh, the sonnet called Remembrance. In the quatrains, the poet expresses grief over past misfortunes. In the first quatrain, the lack of many a thing he sought. In the second quatrain, precious friends hid in death's dateless night. In the third quatrain, grievances foregone. But the climax of the thought is reached in the couplet where to the reader's and also the poet's delight, all losses are made up by the mere remembrance of a living friend whom he loves. Let me read the sonnet Remembrance. When to the sessions of sweet silent thought I summon up remembrance of things past, I sigh the lack of many a thing I sought, and with old woes new wail my dear time's waste. Then can I drown an eye unused to flow for precious friends hid in death's dateless night, and weep afresh love's long since cancelled woe, and mourn the expense of many a vanished sight. Then can I grieve at grievances foregone, and heavily from woe to woe tell over the sad account of fore bemoaned moan, which I new pay as if not paid before. But if the while I think on thee, dear friend, all losses are restored and sorrows end. The Spenserian variety. Now, it will be noted that the quatrains in the Shakespearean sonnet are all unconnected with one another. They have each their own rhymes and cannot therefore be said to be related structurally, though they are united by the subject matter. Earlier, however, Spenser had evolved a new variety, in which each of the quatrains was linked to the other by an intermixture of the rhymes in the following manner: AB, AB, BC, BC, CD, CD, and EE. The second rhyme of the first quatrain introduced as the first rhyme of the second, and the second rhyme of the second quatrain as the first rhyme of the third. The couplet, however, stands alone as in the Shakespearean type. In other respects, there is little difference between the Spenserian form and the Shakespearean. Ice and Fire is a famous Spenserian sonnet. Though there is no set range of the subjects for the sonnet, Shakespeare, following the earlier Elizabethans, had limited its theme to love. His sonnets, which are believed to be in a connected chain or sequence, though the order is a matter of controversy, celebrated his attachment to a young friend, presumably the unidentified Mr. W.H., to whom they are dedicated, or his love for a mysterious dark lady. In Milton's hands, the scope of the sonnet was greatly widened, and in time it came to include almost everything within the range of human feeling and experience. The sonnet is a challenging form and requires great technical skill and artistry. For in a short space of 14 lines, the poet has to express and develop his thought exactly, and at the same time create a certain musical effect.